For this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at subject questions and non-subject questions. Let's look at the explanation first and then the examples. First, we can ask a subject question with what plus the noun or who. What, who. We use the S form of the verb to ask about the present. Again, we use the S form of the verb, as in this case, follows, to ask about the present. We can make a short answer with the subject plus do or does. Now, again, we ask a subject question with what plus a noun or who. Here's our example. What name follows Maria? What plus a noun. Who chooses names for hurricanes? Who? And the question involves a verb, who chooses. Now, remember, we use the S form of the verb to ask about the present. Where is the S form of the verb? Follows and chooses. What name? Nate. Who? Committee. Okay? So again, what name follows Maria? Nate follows Maria. Who chooses names for hurricanes? The committee does. So notice that the question that's being asked, what name, begins, the answer starts the answer to the question. What name? Nate. Who? The committee. We sometimes begin subject questions about the present with what happens. Let's read that again. We sometimes begin subject questions, these are subject questions, about the present with what happens. Example, what happens to a name after a deadly storm? Answer, a committee chooses a new name. Let's go on to the next. We use do or does and the base form of the verb to ask a non-subject question about the present. Let's take a look at the examples. Who do you know on the committee? Or why does the WMO use names? Again, we use do or does, do, does, and the base form of the verb to ask a non-subject question about the present. Base form of the verb, know. Base form of the verb, use. Who do you know on the committee? Why does the WMO use names? Now, by base form of the verb, in this case, know is the base form. What is a non-base form of the verb know? Some examples of non-base form of the verb know would be knew for past tense, will know for future tense. How about the verb use? That's the base form. What would be examples of a non-base form? Used for past tense, will use for future tense, using for present progressive. Let's go on to the next explanation. We can ask subject questions and non-subject questions with whose plus the noun. Again, we can ask subject questions and non-subject questions with whose plus a noun. Whose name has 10 letters. This is a subject question because the subject is name. Anastasia's does. Next, whose last name do you use? Answer, I use my father's last name. On page 104, we see what's called language notes. This is just added material about this topic. Some of it is a little confusing, so please do not be worried if you don't understand all of it right now. But let's take a look at these subject language notes. We use whom, W-H-O-M, to ask about the object. Remember, subject, verb, object. That's the usual format for English sentences. When we're asking about the object, we use whom in formal English, but in informal English, we often use who instead of whom. Let's look at two examples. Here's informal. In other words, when we're just speaking with a friend or a relative, informal. Who do you know on the committee? In this case, who is the object, right? Because the subject is you, and the object would be who do you know? The committee itself is the object. Informal, use who. But for formal, when you're writing a formal paper, for example, because this is about the object, we would write, whom do you know on the committee? All right? In informal English, talking to friends, family members, etc., informal English, we use who and put the preposition at the end of the question. In formal English, we use whom after the preposition. Let's look at the examples. Here's informal, talking to friends, family members. Who do you live with? Notice we put the preposition at the end. But with formal language, if you're speaking to someone really important or writing a formal paper, you would say, with whom do you live? This sounds strange because we usually don't hear it, but it's actually proper English. Number 3, when we don't know an answer to a question, we sometimes say, who knows? This is a subject question. When is the next hurricane? Who knows? Okay. Number 4, the answer to a subject question can use the S form or the base form. Either one. Let me underline or. The S form or the base form. Who has a long name? Answer, I have a long name. Here's the S form, here's the base form. Okay, let's take a look at exercise 18. For this exercise, they would like you to complete the conversations with the correct form of the word or words given, or do or does. So you're going to complete the conversation with the correct form of the words given, or do or does. Who, well, they give you the word have, which is the base form of that verb. Who has an uncommon name in your family? How about this one? My brother, what would this be? Well, if the question is who has, our answer is my brother does, D-O-E-S. His name is Ezekiel, but only a few people call him that. Who, base form call, what would this be? Who, okay, so just fill in each of these, take a picture of it, and send it to me. Okay, that's 4.6. Good luck.